YouTube. Come on. Oh, my computer is so slow. Come on. I know it's difficult. I've got a lot of stuff going on with this thing. It bogs it down, but... Go to my channel. Go to my lives. Go to here. There we go. Now, got that set up now. Okay, get that all set up and going. See how that works out. Take care of that. Okay, so say I have somebody in here. I never know if that's actually somebody in here in the live, or if that's just reading my laptop here. I'm never fully sure on that one. Hope this doesn't drown everything out too much, but I'm going to turn the air conditioner on because I am hot. Even though it's fall, my computer's still saying it's 94 degrees outside and I am burning up. So, I'm turning my AC on. Hopefully that doesn't drown everything out. But why my computer does that. So, still give it a few minutes here to see if I've put a post over on TikTok and Facebook that I would be here. So give them a few minutes to see it, and hopefully people will come over and join. See if anybody joins up here. I'm hoping to start doing regular videos more often. Yeah, see, it keeps saying, oh, there's somebody coming in now. Right, Alex. But trying to work on the attraction, and I'm at a part now where I can only handle doing so much before I get bored, and my ADHD and everything, I can't focus down on it that much. But once I get this section of the work done, the next two decks will be much easier because I can essentially just copy and paste right on over where I need it to go, and I don't gotta deal with all this stuff still, so it'd be a lot easier. But I'm trying to lay out the standard accommodation decks detailed with each room and how each room gets laid out, and different styles of rooms. Some rooms have a little entry hallway. Some just open straight up into the sitting room. Some are facing this way, some are facing this way. you know, just a whole bunch of different things. So I'm just, like I said, just trying to really mix it up a good deal and get everything planned out. Like I said, once I get E deck done, F deck's pretty much identical, but then G deck, F deck's just got a couple more rooms in certain areas, but then G deck is the one that's going to need the more work again, because I'll have to shrink a lot of the stuff down and everything, because it's a smaller group of rooms down there compared to everything else. So that's where I'm at with that one. I said I've got it laid out here on the computer. I said, like I've showed on TikTok and everything, right here. I've been working on it in Paint because it's just easier for me to be able to do the editing and everything in that. I can draw and erase and copy paste, do whatever I need to do much, much easier. I know a lot of people think of Paint as like a child's program or a little, amateur computer program for beginners, but if you really know what you're doing with the program, you can get a lot done. You really can. You can really get a great deal of stuff done if you know what you're doing and everything. And I mean, there are people who make entire pieces of artwork just in Microsoft Paint, in the Windows Paint, whatever you want to call it. So, yeah, like I said, if you know what you're doing, you can definitely get a lot of stuff done. But yeah, like I said, I'm working E deck right now. I've got all of the rooms down the center of the ship pretty much done. I just got to tweak certain details so that they're not just simple copied and pasted. They're all slightly different and, individualized in their own little way. And then I just got to do the outer sides of the hull, which again, I could just do one side, then copy, paste, flip, rotate, edit, and it'll all be the same. It'll all come out pretty much the way I want it. And then the trick is to go in and I pretty much copy and paste the entire deck down to F deck for create second class, and then I got a few rooms I got to add in near the forward grand staircase. Said I did away with the aft grand staircase and went back to the original second class entrance stairs and elevator back there. So you've got a staircase and 3 elevators at the front, and then a staircase and a 4th elevator at the back of the ship. So it's very handicap accessible. You can reach all of the floors very easily without a problem. In order to do it, I had to slide some of the rooms around because I had them spaced out to where there were other hallways and junctions and, ways to get around. But I decided to simply, kind of cut that off and just do it the way, do it this way. But yeah, like I said, I've got then the next fun part is the rooms at the back of the ship and then the rooms at the front of the ship on each deck. Now, E deck, where I'm working at right now, the aft end, I'm thinking about on the aft end, keep one side as the child care rooms, as the daycares, basically, for the first class passengers. And then put on the other side of the hallway, have some escape rooms. There's been a lot of talk with some people, with fans on my TikTok and my Facebook about having some like escape rooms, because those are very popular right now. And so having some themed escape rooms included as part of the activities that guests can do while they're on board. So that's something I'm looking into including as well. The fun part's going to be trying to come up with the puzzles that you need for the rooms, and what the answers and solutions will be and everything. But yeah, that's what I'm planning. Another thing a lot of fans have been asking on, especially on TikTok, but also on Facebook and over on the Encyclopedia Titanica forum, I've had some people asking over there as well, about doing period costume events, being able to wear period clothing as they would have dressed on the Titanic. And so I've been trying to work with that one. That one's a little trickier because a lot of the staff are going to have uniforms that are period clothing. So I don't really want the guests to get confused as employees and vice versa or whatever. But, of course, Halloween, we could do period clothing. The anniversary week in April, we could do period clothing. I got a friend of mine on Facebook that does the clothing stuff. She makes a lot of the period clothes, and she even portrays Thomas Andrews' wife in reenactments and documentaries and different things. And so, I'm trying to talk to her about how to incorporate that stuff like fans want. But, yeah, there's still... I know one thing I still get a lot, and I fully understand it, is... I said in the forums over on Encyclopedia Titanica website.org, I've had them say it. I've had them say it on Facebook. All of that, of course, is fans have been let down so many times already. Palmer promised Titanic 2, failed. China started their replica Titanic. It has stalled out numerous times. It's stalled out again. And as I've said before as well, that even if China does finish their Titanic at some point, it's never really going to be that popular outside of China. They've got numerous theme parks that recreate, places and landmarks from around the world inside China. But nobody from outside China goes to see them because the political climate right now overall in this world, people don't, from like here in the U.S. where, and other free countries, in Europe, Canada, whatever, they don't want to travel into deep rural communist China where they do the smallest, tiniest little thing wrong, they could get thrown in jail for the rest of their lives and never go home. So the Titanic over there in China is never going to be anything outside of China itself. So yeah, fans have been let down. As I said, I fully understand. It's, if Cameron had just built Titanic originally for his movie, it would have been cheaper to build the real ship back then than it was to actually make that movie. You know, we could have had Titanic a long time ago. We could have had a replica Titanic to visit since the 90s if Cameron had just done it originally. But eventually somebody is going to do it. And right now I am the only one that's actually working on it. You know. So you're right about the toxicity. It has to stop. Oh, I got another friend of mine who's pretty much left the Titanic community because of everything. Because, you know, he still holds the view that he wants to see the wreck raised. He wants to see the ship salvaged. And he gets blasted every time he talks about it. So he's pretty much left the community. He don't do much anymore. But yeah, like I said, it's ridiculous. But like I said, with the attraction though, like I was saying, you know, as I've said on Facebook and TikTok and on the thread over on the Encyclopedia Titanica website, you know, I am determined to do whatever I can to see this project to the very end, to make sure to do whatever it takes to bring it to life. And the only way it's going to essentially fail is when I pass away, and if there's nobody left to take over after me and continue my work. But, you know, because while the fans have helped design this attraction by, you know, telling, you know, several years ago when I started Project Edwardian, as it was originally called, I asked the fans here on YouTube, when I was at the height of my YouTube, and on Facebook, if you could create the ultimate Titanic attraction, what would it have? And fans gave a whole range of things they would love to see. And I wasn't able to incorporate everything. One of the big things I wasn't able to do was they wanted to have the engines and the boilers. At least one boiler room that they could actually see the boilers. And I still get people requesting that part of it. And with the attraction itself, I can't really fit those in. You would lose a ton of space and room and everything. It really would not work. But, you know, that's another reason why I put in the VR room, so you can have a virtual reality version of it. You can still, you know, kind of go in and see it in some form. Now, of course, another which a video I just did earlier on TikTok is all over TikTok right now, there's this like a tablet-sized LED panel that you plug a cord into the back of it and you snap it into the frame, and you can use as many of these LED panels as you want to create a screen, a TV screen, as big as you want. You can use one panel, or you can use 500 panels. You can use 1,000 panels. You can go as big as you possibly want. And they're flexible, all kinds of stuff. And I've been looking at those for the theater that's on board the Titanic, as well as most likely possibly doing a like holodeck from like Star Trek. Instead of like a normal VR room, you have an actual like immersive holodeck experience. There's another video I've seen on TikTok that I forget where it's at. Some like tech company, tech college, whatever, here in the U.S. I don't think it was MIT. Might have been though. but they've created this flexible screen, very durable, you can walk on it, everything, that is high definition, that can fill the walls, the ceiling, the floor. It wraps, and so you don't get that corner part. It bends and wraps into it, so you don't get creases and corners, and it blends seamlessly. And you can project whatever you want, and it puts you like right into that environment, basically. And it's pretty much, like I said, it's pretty much a holodeck, is what it is. And you know, I'm thinking about adding that room, one of those types of rooms in. Like maybe the VR room would be for like second, third class, and then the actual holodeck would be for first class. But yeah, that's something I'm looking into as well for the attraction. Yeah, the sounds of the engines, all that. Yeah, like I said, you know, I'm sure there's, you know, probably ways you could pump sounds in to simulate that. But like I said, to have the actual engines and boilers simply isn't going to work very well. But you know, there's still a lot to figure out with the attraction as we, you know, as it continues to progress. And even right up until the point that it's built and it's opened and going, there's still going to be things that you got to figure out and you got to tweak, you're going to have to fix. There's always going to be bugs. But who knows? And I've always said that if this attraction works out and is successful, you know, it could lead to others, maybe like the Titanic or the Lusitania or whatever. But I've also been thinking, what other ships could be a fun attraction worth seeing? You know, not just like real world historical ships like Titanic, but you know, what if you created, you know, a full-scale Millennium Falcon from Star Wars? Or what if you did, like, say, one of the small Starfleet ships from Star Trek, like, say, the Defiant? You know, one of those little runabouts from Deep Space Nine. Maybe Voyager. Voyager wasn't super huge. You know, but the problem with Star Trek versions would be, how do you get on? Because they don't have the loading bay, you know, the little drop down loading dock like you know, the Millennium Falcon's got the loading door on the starboard side that you can drop down and go in and out. They don't have that in Star Trek. You beam on and off of all of your ships, or you take a shuttlecraft out. There's no hatch, there's no entryway. Full-scale replica of Mass Effect's Normandy? Not sure exactly which one that one is. I'd have to look into that, but those options are way off anyway. I said, you know, whether, you know, whatever it may be, those are all still way down the road, and most likely some of them will probably never happen anyway. But it's just always fun to think about. To think about what could be done. I know there's a guy here on YouTube named Colin Furs. He's a pretty popular guy here. He's built life-size TIE fighters and AT-ATs and everything from Star Wars. You know, and there actually was somebody, I haven't seen anything on it in a few years, But there was a guy, I think he was I think he was over in the UK, I think. I don't think he was here in the US. But there was a guy who was actually working on a life-size Millennium Falcon replica. He had started with the cockpit, and he'd gotten the cockpit built, and he had the tunnel that goes down to the cockpit from the main body of the ship. He had started all that. But like I said, I haven't heard anything from him I've not seen anything on his progress in years. So I'm guessing it never came through. But personally, as a Trekkie myself, I would love to see a Trek ship, especially Voyager, because Voyager was my favorite. You know, of course, you can always put a loading ramp in at the very bottom. I think it was 15 decks on Voyager, 15 or 16 decks. You can go down to deck 15, deck 16, very bottom of the ship, the bottom of the main hull, and you can put a little loading ramp in, make it fit in there somewhere. But, you know, and then of course book out all the rooms for like little hotel rooms. People could stay on board, make the mess hall functional. There's actually multiple mess halls on the Voyager. You had the main mess hall that was seen on the show, but there's other mess halls for the lower decks crew and for the officers' crew. Captain had her own private mess hall that became Neelix's little kitchen in the show. The Death Star was built. That one, I don't think the Earth has enough material for that one, because that's basically a planet in and of itself. That'd be crazy. That'd be wicked crazy to see, but yeah. That one, highly doubtful. But yeah, like I said, I'm still, like I said, working on the, like I said, I've got I put in one extra level of the curved grand staircase steps, and then the normal steps that were on E deck, I'm moving down to F deck, and then the section that went from E deck down to F deck originally is going to get moved to go from F to G. It's all going to get rearranged a bit, but like I said, I'm still working on. My only thing with the attraction is figuring out what exactly to do with a lot of these rooms. I said, I know one of the rooms I want is going to have laundry, obviously, because you got to be able to wash the sheets and the pillowcases and the bedding and the towels and all of that stuff. You got to be able to wash that on site. Yeah, the big sphere in Vegas. Oh, I'm sure they'll probably project it if they haven't already. They project so much stuff, it's hard to keep up. But I seen one video earlier, one of the first concerts that they've held in this sphere last day or two, because they've got those big LCD panels on the outside as well as on the inside, and they had them, the ones on the inside, they had them set that they looked like they were shut off. You just look like the framework for them, and then all of a sudden they start kind of moving and opening up, and you kind of see daylight through them, and then it looks like dust is falling out of them, and it looks like the whole dome is starting to collapse, and then all of a sudden they start moving and sliding apart, and it becomes a big screen that projects the guy that was doing the concert. I don't know who the artist was, up on the big screen between the panels, and it was pretty fun to watch it. Try to freak the concert goers out. In thinking the sphere was going to collapse during its first concert. That one was pretty funny. Now, but yeah, like I said, my next trick here as I go through these rooms is to redo the numbers so that I get all the proper occupancy rates. Certain rooms have 6 people, some have 4. The single rooms come in 1 and 2 person style. So, you know, I gotta make sure I got them all knocked out with the proper occupancies. But, man, excuse me. Late lunch earlier. Acid reflux. Yeah, the other China and Palmer. Yeah, those two. Palmer did it to himself. You know, when he announced that one back in 2012, I said back then it was never going to work, that it was going to fail. Let me move that a little bit. And, you know, sure enough, it did. It failed horribly. Ooh, ow, Charlie horse. You know, I said the designers for his ship backed out in 2014. His company went under in 2016. He was facing a big tax audit down there in Australia, and ended up moving a lot of stuff to some of his businesses that were not included in the audit to try to save them. And he don't even really discuss Titanic anymore. I had him on Facebook for a while, and yeah, he don't discuss Titanic. He don't mention Titanic. And in China, of course, you know, he talked so much smack on China that they told him to screw off and went and started their own version, and they've got the farthest so far, I'll give them that, but like I said, ain't nobody going there. I don't know about a fleet of Titanics, but I know his idea was to basically sail like around the Indian Ocean and stuff, and kind of up around Africa and up towards England, and kind of go from like England down Africa and around into the Indian Ocean and back to Australia, in kind of a weird route. It's like, if you're gonna do a replica Titanic, then you got to go from, you know, Queenstown, Cherbourg. Queenstown is now called Cove, I believe. I think that's the one that had its name changed since. One of them's now Cobb or Cove, however you want to pronounce it. But go from, you know, Southampton to through all those, and then over to New York, and follow the original route. If you're going to do it right. And he didn't want to. See, his thing is he sold tickets the moment he announced he was going to do it, and he sold out, and he sold tickets out almost instantly. And you know, that's one reason why, you know, I haven't decided to sell tickets for this attraction until now. You know, people wanted tickets when I very first started, and I told them that I wasn't going to do tickets back then because there was nothing, to do anything with. But I think that now we're at a point in the project where tickets could help. Tickets could be more viable, and so I'm taking that option at this point. But yeah, I could do so much better if I could get some sort of like notable name with me, behind me on this project. Get some big backer to come in, help finance it. I've tried emailing, which I'll probably email again, keep trying, but emailed JP Morgan to see about getting that bank to finance the project, since JP Morgan was a big financer for the original Titanic. Kind of honor that memory. I've tried to email Macy's about supplying the attraction with the sheets and the bedding and the towels and the dishes, the silverware, everything that, the cookware, everything that the attraction would need to function in that manner. Get it from Macy's, since Isidore and Ida Strauss, the founders of Macy's, of course, passed away on the Titanic. Help honor that legacy a little bit as well. But again, I've not heard back yet. I was supposed to hear from Branson, but I never have. I've emailed them, tried to follow up, still not heard back. I had the meeting with EM Group, who run the RMS Titanic Inc. traveling museums, and I've not heard back from them since our meeting. I've sent them a follow-up to see what they thought. But there's just so much stuff to if I could sell all these tickets, which, I've got the app up on Facebook where you can go check out the tickets, and, they're broken down by, by what ticket there are, and everything. I said, they're pricey. Tickets are expensive, yes, because like I said, you can't expect to, stay on board the Titanic for $50. It's not going to happen. That's just, no, not going to happen. The most expensive ticket is the parlor suite, which, of course, there's 2 parlor suites. Each one can hold 4 people. So there's only 8 tickets total available in the all-access pass right here that I've got. That one parlor suite ticket is almost $10,000. They're $1,912 per person per day for the parlor suite. Now you gotta also remember, again, parlor suite was the largest, most luxurious room on the ship, and at the time, a ticket for the real parlor suite in today's dollars would have cost between $100,000 and $150,000 for that suite. So $1,912 per person per day at a 5-day pass for less than $10,000 for that room is a far cheaper stay for that experience than it would have been on the original. But you got the parlor suite, then you got first, second, and third class in the authentic, and you got first, second, and third in the standard. And the standard accommodations is more like just normal hotel rooms. They're decorated in, an Edwardian era style, you know, to keep with the theme. But for the most part, it's pretty much normal rooms. You have TV, you could take, have all your electronics, your technology, and everything. And those rooms are $99 for third class, $149 for second, and $199 per person per day for first class. So, you get the idea of how that works. So honestly, I'm just waiting on Greece to get their heads. Oh, even if Greece opened it up, Simon wouldn't. I've talked with Simon. I've emailed him before, because there was rumors at one point that they was going to turn it into a dive school, and while it's far shallower than the Titanic, it's still at a depth that is very, very dangerous unless you're a top-notch professional diver. Even some of the best divers in the world, like John Chatterton and Richie Kohler, who again I have talked to on Facebook and everything. I used to have them on Facebook. They themselves have had hard times getting down to the Britannic, just because it's, like I said, 400 feet. You're still getting an immense amount of pressure on the body at that depth. So, trying to descend and ascend from that wreck, bends is very, very likely, and has happened actually. Of course, the wreck is on its side, which makes it very disorienting when you're inside of it and everything. I think it was Richie Kohler that attempted to go through the break at the forward end there at the well deck, down to the fireman's passage at the bottom of the ship, and back to the boiler room. And he was trying to get through to see how far he could get through all the boiler rooms to see if they had left the watertight doors opened, or if they had actually closed all of the watertight doors when Britannic started to sink. As he got into the first boiler room, into boiler room 6, and everything's up on its side, he goes to ascend up to one of, because there's 2 paths between the boilers that allow you to get from the front of the boiler room to the aft end of the boiler room, and everything. So he descended, he went to one side, and it was blocked off and impassable. So he goes to the other side, and he gets through it toward almost to the very end. He could see the watertight door on the back side, but there was a big wheelbarrow right there blocking his path, and he couldn't go beyond it. He tried, but he ended up getting silted out, and it disoriented him big time. So yeah, Britannic, I don't think will ever be able to be visited by the public. That, I believe she's also a UNESCO World Heritage Site now as well, after her 100th anniversary, because they usually take over after the 100th anniversaries on stuff like that. That dive almost killed him. He barely made it out. Yeah. That one is included on that dive. Try to get repositioned here again. That dive in particular, I think, was included on the special Titanic's Forgotten Sister, I think is the name of it. One of the Britannic specials. There's a few Britannic specials that I like. I know there was one which is one of why I stick to the theory that Titanic's breakup was started aft of the third funnel at the expansion joint, not forward of the third funnel like so many try to claim now. There is no structural point forward of that funnel that would initiate a breakup. the failure is and has always been that expansion joint at the aft side between the third and fourth funnel. And, they knew that in 1920, way back then with the Olympic. In this book right here, they have, find it here a minute, right there it is, right there. Those are the expansion joints of the Olympic, and those mark documented fissures or cracks in Olympic's hull, because the crude point of the expansion joint is not something you do. Any engineer will tell you never put a sharp point in steel. Some of the very first airplanes had square windows, and they would get fissures at that point in that corner, and it caused explosive decompressions in a lot of the aircrafts. That's why windows on airplanes are round now. And on the Britannic, they not only went from 2 to 5 expansion joints, but they changed it from that sharp V that we saw on the Olympic and the Olympic and the Titanic, but they changed it to a more bulbous, like thermometer style, rounded end on the Britannic. That's about the size as, I think it was John Chatterton described when he went down and viewed them to check them out, about the size of his hand. They're fairly large. So, like I said, they've known since Titanic sank, and even before that, that the expansion joints were a problem. They were very crudely designed, and they caused the steel to crack and have fissures and break. So I still, to this day, and I will always maintain that it was the expansion joint aft of the funnel that caused the breakup, not anything forward of the, of the funnel, as so many others try to claim. And I know a lot of the experts talk about, well, we found that this exact frame, piece of framing here is where it initiated. This is where it started. No, you don't. You've got framework throughout the ship, kind of like this, right? Say this is the one that initiates the failure. Well, you're going to get things messed up on all sides. You're going to tell me you can pinpoint which messed up beam is the first beam to mess up? No. You're going to get a range, but you're never going to, you cannot pinpoint it down to one specific beam. Especially when you're looking at everything over 100 years later that's been sitting, rusting away at the bottom of the ocean. That doesn't work that way. So, no, I will always maintain it was the expansion joint aft of the third funnel that caused the breakup. And I've talked to several people that actually do still agree with that theory. Now, I know another part that I've explained to people, and when I explain it, they sort of understand, is on the starboard side of the hull at the well deck, there is what they call the big opening, where the bow bent down and the side of the ship kind of blew out and opened up. And of course, a lot of the conspiracy theorists like to say that that was where the fire was, and that's proof of the fire. No, that's where that blew out. That's well above the water line, and it's in the cargo holds, not the bunkers, not the coal bunkers. Has nothing to do with the fire or any of that. But I do believe that that spot that blew out like that when it bent down is part of the iceberg damage. Because we note that the iceberg hit from within the range of the forecastle to just inside the coal bunker of boiler room 5, roughly, give or take a foot or two. We know that range, and it's well within the middle of that range. We also know that ice fell on the forward well deck because passengers stated that. Passengers were playing with the ice that fell on the forward well deck. So I maintain that while it may not have damaged the hull plates enough that it was noticeable when sounding the ship, and everything, that the iceberg did hit right there and pop the rivets along that section, and then that's what caused the ice to break off onto the well deck. And then, so that opening, that is actually iceberg damage. That also explains why on the port side of the bow, where it's still bent down, you don't see that same blowout. It's a completely different. It folded in on itself on the port side. It didn't blow out. So yeah, I maintain that section on the starboard side is part of the iceberg damage that they didn't possibly know about. And I think as the ship sank and that seam that had been opened got up to the waterline, it might have sped the sinking up just a hair. Maybe not enough that it was statistically noticeable, but I do think, instead of like 2:20 a.m., they might have been able to last till like 2:30. Just a few minutes difference. But I know another thing. A lot of people don't talk about it because I don't think a lot of people know. But in Titanic, I'm trying to think. I think it's Titanic's Achilles heel with Roger Long, who I still have on Facebook, and I've talked to him too. They explore into the V-split theory, which is another theory that, I've prescribed to a little bit and everything. Because, he talks about, if the ship broke the way you see it in the movie, you would have tension at the top and compression at the bottom as it did this. But you don't see that at the wreck. If that's the way it broke, then it should be fairly clean cut at the top, and it should be kind of crushed and jumbled at the bottom, at the keel. And it's not. If you look at the wreck, the upper decks are crushed and mangled and twisted. The whole upper deck section from the third section in the middle of the ship, between the stern and bow, they're a mangled ball of debris out in the debris field. Meanwhile, the keel, if you look at the bow, the keel section, and of course on the two big double bottom sections as well, they're clean cut, showing that it looks as if it actually split from the bottom up. And another one of my theories is D-deck. People talked about hearing what they described as explosions inside the ship, and they thought it was the boilers exploding because it was ice cold water hitting boiling hot boilers. But we know the boilers didn't explode. We know that now because you can see right into the boiler room at the aft end of the bow section, and there's intact boilers laying free in the debris field itself. The explosions that people heard, in my opinion, are interior decks collapsing. See, on most ships, there's decks kind of sit on this shelf where they kind of float a little bit. Because when the ship is out at sea, it flexes and it moves with the waves. That's what the expansion joints are for. All of that. It moves. So the decks, to prevent cracking and breaking and all of that, the decks sort of float a little bit. They have a little bit of free range to move, but not a lot. Not very, not a whole big amount, but just a little bit. And of course, D-deck, being the most open area on the ship, provides very little support to the deck above it, to C-deck. And even in Cameron's film, when the ship begins to break apart, there's a very quick shot of the, I think it was the smoking lounge, the room where Jack and Rose run into Andrews for the last time. That as the ship breaks apart, you could see the support columns running floor to ceiling just explode under the stress, and the ceiling collapses. And that's what I think those explosions that survivors testified to hearing were. Is you had the support columns midship on D-deck in the dining saloons shattered as the ship began to break apart, began to stress out and twist as it's coming up out of the water. And so the columns supporting floor to ceiling just explode. They just basically shatter. And with nothing left to support C-deck up above it, C-deck collapses down. Now there's nothing supporting B-deck. B-deck collapses. Now A-deck collapses, all of it. Then, maybe not the full deck, but sections of the deck, at least, you know. And of course, all that weight builds up on D-deck, which now can no longer be supported by the wooden structures of the walls on E-deck. So the wood down there collapses, and it all falls down to E-deck, which can now no longer go any lower because the bulkheads stop at E-deck. So the whole middle section of Titanic, which was originally, let's say, this thick, is now about this thick. You know, and one of my theories was at one point, and I still kind of believe it a little bit, the stern, or the bow section, I mean, being primarily full of water. You know, pretty much full of water. It's just kind of there. Once it's full of water and underwater, it's just, the water plays no more role. You're basically just the weight of the steel. But the stern, being full of air, floats up and over, and it collapses. As you look at the bow wreck, you see those aft sun deck, and everything aft of the second funnel is dropped down. It's collapsed. And I believe that's because the stern came up and over and crushed it down into that way we see it now. And I said, I know a lot of people don't buy this. A lot of people don't. They think I'm off my rocker for this one. But, you know, having gone over thousands of hours of dive footage, numerous images, high-resolution images of the wreck, working with models myself, you know, I think the stern came up and over and crushed, and then that pushed the tip of the bow maybe 20, 30 feet, 50 feet at most. Not a very big chunk. But as Jack Thayer describes, which LP Skidmore from the Carpathia drew, he talks about the ship breaking and the bow coming up out of the water. You know. And of course, like I said, a lot of people don't believe me on this. A lot of people think I don't know what I'm talking about. And my first response to all of them is, okay, the survivors themselves testified for years that the ship broke in two, and you same people told them they were wrong, that they didn't know what they were talking about, and they were the ones that were actually there when it happened. You were wrong about them. You're probably wrong about me too. It's not that outlandish. But, you know, One area I do agree with the breakup with Cameron is that the double bottom stayed connected for a minute. Because in a lot of my model tests that I have done, I have found that if the bow and the stern separated completely at the surface and the stern remained upright, it would have floated. Water would have flooded into the brake, hit that first watertight bulkhead, maybe got past it to the second watertight compartment, but it would have stopped right there. And the stern would have floated on its own, even with the bow completely gone. So I do think they were still attached, and the stern, the bow pulled the stern down with it, allowing water to get over multiple bulkheads to the point that it sunk on its own accord. But, like I said, if you look at the wreck, especially the bow section, you look at the two pieces of double bottom that have been found that connect the stern to the bow, you will see the keel is bent upwards like it went into a V-split. And I said, with the bow section, you can see where the upper decks between the second and third funnel were crushed down and the sides are pushed out of the ship. Just like something came down on top of it and pushed it down. I said the midsection of the ship, up to just forward of the third funnel and up to almost right about the fourth funnel, an equal amount roughly on each side of that expansion joint, is completely crushed into a ball out in the debris field. And I said, that's why I think, the ship started to break and then it came together and just kind of crushed in on itself. I think as it started to split, the way we most commonly think of it, water filled that midsection, that break, and pulled it down into itself. Because if you look at pretty much any shipwreck where a ship has broken in half, you will find that ships out in open water, when they break in half, they do a V-split. They sink in a V-split. Water floods into the break and then pulls them down under. The ships that split this way tend to be in shallow water where there's something holding them up underneath of the keel. So, I am one of the few that prescribe to the V-split theory when it comes to the breakup. I think there's plenty of evidence for it, but, like I said, it's my opinion. Everybody's welcome to have their own opinion. I don't buy Cameron's main theory, forward of the third funnel and all this different stuff, and I don't buy that. So, but it's been pretty fun sitting here talking about the breakup and everything, and been here for a little over an hour now. I think I'm going to go ahead and get off here, and we're trying to find me something for supper, go work on the attraction a little more, try to get some more rooms finished up on E deck so I can start doing F deck and then eventually G deck. But hopefully, I said, so if you're, for anybody watching during the live or after the live is over, subscribe here on YouTube so you know when I go live. You can join me for these spirited talks. We can discuss all kinds of stuff, as you can see. Go follow on TikTok, trying to get up to the threshold over there to go live over there. And then, of course, follow on Facebook as well. But I will most likely see you all next Saturday. I said I am, as I've said before, I'm looking to move. I don't know when I'm hoping to be out of here before the snow flies. So whenever I find a place and I start to move, the lives might stop for a little while. I might not be able to go live like I normally do, but we'll see how that goes. I've got an application in one place. I'm still applying to a few other places, that I can afford right now. And of course, once the attraction's built, I got my own apartment inside of that, which I've explained before, so wouldn't have to worry about all that again. But anyway, I will hopefully I will see you all next week. And I said, subscribe here, follow on TikTok, and follow on Facebook, so you know all the updates with the attraction and when I go live here. And hopefully I can get to the threshold to go live on TikTok more often. And I will see you all next week, hopefully.